Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our neck of the woods. We have some very interesting things for y'all today. I'm going to do a little bit of reading. Um, as promised, we have been doing our research. I've already placed the link for this first article in the chat for you guys. Let me know real quick if you guys can hear me. Just give me a 5x5 or a thumbs up or something. Um, just so we make sure that we're not all wonky sounding. Anybody? All right. Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and start reading. Um, so what we have here is an article by Paul Strammer, and it's Lincoln County Watch in the state of Washington. Now, what I want to read from is this solid resources and brief explanations from Anna von Ritz. I do believe Jeff has all the links for the stuff we're going to talk about today down in the description box on YouTube. So bear with me. I wanted to bring this up because it's very important. And I think that this is important for people to understand. And a lot of this stuff you're not going to like. It's going to go completely in the face of the things that a lot of people have been doing, trying to get our country back and all that. So I just want to read some excerpts from this, and like I said, the link is there for you guys to go check this out yourselves. So here we go. All forms of law, except natural law, like the laws of gravity and heredity, etc., come from religion. This is because our religions establish what we consider to be right and wrong, and that in turn establishes law. So this is the part I wanted to share with you guys. Okay. The law of the land in the Western world is based on the Mosaic law of the Bible, which is common to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Ten Commandments are the basis of the law of the land, which in this country is American common law. The Constitution is also formed under common law and is called the law of the land by the federal government to distinguish it as the law, in quotes, that they must obey when dealing with us, the people of the United States, and our unincorporated states on the land known as the States of America. Now, this is a very good article. I'm not going to read all of it. Like I said, I'm only going to be reading excerpts. So here's the second. The law of the sea is international in nature and is based on law merchant, derived from the Code of Hammurabi, maritime commercial law, and the law of the sea, admiralty, and it says it's derived from satanic law of Sumeria and the Phoenicians, the source of the word phony. So the legal system is sea jurisdiction as opposed to lawful system of the land. Now, they have that, but there is also this, and this is the part which got me very interested in a lot of different things. There is also the law of the air, which is global in jurisdiction and ecumenical, which I'm sorry, I probably butchered that word, is only three. It has only three laws: keep the peace, do no harm, treat others as you would like to be treated yourself. If you obey these laws of the air, you automatically fulfill all other laws and stand above any other form of law. All right. So I thought that was interesting because I've never heard anybody bring that up. And then the other thing that I would like to do today with y'all, hey, hello, Frank, good to see you, is I'm going to read part of this PDF book called Paper Arrows. And it was written in an entirely different time. but it is so relevant to today. So let me pull that up here, and then I will get on reading that because I think it's important to share this information with you guys. Um, we are not by any means done researching, but we have come across a lot of very, very interesting things. So, this is a book called Paper Arrows Excerpts from Howard Griswold. Okay. Now, I'm going to skim through some of this in the beginning because I feel like the book itself has so much valuable information in it that you guys need to hear. So I'm going to read a little bit of this part here, and I'm going to take this book in sections, okay? So stay tuned. It's not a very long book. It's just very weighty in words. So the foreword lets you know that the glossary is at the front. So here, I'm going to go ahead and just read this. The format of this information is different than most that you have seen. The differences were placed there for the very purpose of helping you to understand and think through the huge problems of trying to expose the truths that exist today. For those of you that might be coming upon these ideas for the first time, we hope these changes will help. Now it will be up to you to break away from the sitcoms or the playoffs or any of the rest of the numerous intentional distractions from the truth. One way that this writing is different is that the glossary is placed up front where it belongs. It should be read first. If, after reading it, there is a word that you do not understand, read it again. The material that follows cannot be of any use to you if you do not know the meanings of the words of which the ideas are made. Get a law dictionary, look up the terms for yourself. Go to your local municipal or law library and study these unfamiliar terms. Browse through the USCS, the US codes, and you will be amazed to find what they have hidden from you. Another way this work differs from most is that the most important points in a sentence or paragraph are put in the margins of the pages for quick reference. This makes some of the more important ideas easier to find. Do not, however, assume that these notes in the margin are the only points to be made in the paragraph, or that they are the most important ones. They are not. They are the ones that we feel are very important and should not be neglected. You may have a reason to pick up a completely different point to be made in that paragraph, and you should write it in the margin yourself for easy reference. There has also been an index provided which catalogs the emphasized points in the margin. Again, this is for assisting you. Add your points to this index too. Finally, there are some sample forms in the back to help with seeing what may be done with this information. None of this work is an attempt to advise or counsel, and each is on his own as to how an offense or defense is to be established. More help will come later with revisions and new paper arrows as they are found. The present is not a key to the past, nor to the future. Do what you can. All right? So that is the forward. And I'm gonna read off some of these definitions for you guys. Hey, big brother. Hey, Tim. Good to see you. It may seem boring to some of you, but there are many ways to garner your freedom, but to think that anyone on this plane is truly free when they're wrapped up in a governmental system is mistaken. So, hey Nathan, good to see you. I'm going to go ahead and read off the glossary terms, and I'll come back in, and then we're going to section up this book. But I want to share this whole book with you guys because it's pretty important stuff. Okay, so bear with me. If I butcher words, I'm sorry. Like I said, the link is in the chat, also in the description box, so that you guys can go look at this PDF yourself, print it off if you want. Really good information. So, glossary of terms, and it is a good idea to be seated before reading many of these definitions. So let's go ahead and get started. Abroad means beyond the seas, not subject to maritime law, out of admiralty jurisdiction, a free Natural person lives abroad. Artifice, a device used to defraud. Bank, BANC, is a bank, a bench, a full court. A court full of filed property deeds is a bank. The court just may be the real bank. Bank, BANK, is a bank, BANC. A bench, a full court, a court full of filed property deeds is a bank. Bounty, a premium given, compensation paid. Civil death, a person who has lost all of his civil rights, a person still possessing natural life, but is considered civilly dead as to his civil rights. In some states, persons convicted of serious crimes are considered to be civilly dead and may lose the right to vote, the right to contract, and the right to sue and be sued. A corporation which has formally dissolved or become bankrupt becomes civilly dead. Lends new meaning to the term born again. Civil law, distinguished from natural law and international law, referred to as municipal law, government law, Roman law, distinguished from common law as American law, not American law, foreign law. Claim, to take possession of a thing that was not yours before the claim. So why would anyone want to claim their children if the children already belong to them? Maybe the children belong to another, or maybe the state. Constructive is synonymous with legal and is in contradistinction to lawful. So there is legal fraud, but there's no lawful fraud. So constructive fraud, actual fraud, any breach of duty which gains an advantage to the person in fault or anyone claiming under him, such as his agent, that misleads another to his prejudice to violate public or private confidence. Contribution. One tortfeasor or lawbreaker is responsible for the debts and losses of the rest of the group of joint tortfeasors or lawbreakers. They are all lawbreakers together. An example is Social Security. All persons in the system are liable for the debts and losses of all the others in Social Security, and they are all presumed to be lawbreakers as such. Corporation. A person with a perpetual life, a fiction, a colorable person. The subject with the 14th Amendment. It cannot move from its place of birth without first getting permission and a license. A person born by an act of legislation. Okay? Classifications of corporations. You've got public versus private, ecclesiastical versus lay, stock versus non-stock, aggregate versus sole, subsidiary versus parent, foreign versus domestic, and eleemosynary versus civil. The federal government has set up private corporations under federal law. They are known as federally chartered corporations. They are defined and listed in 36 U.S.C.S. Title 36. American Red Cross is one, Girl Scouts is another, VFW is also one. There are 52 in all. Look it up in your local library as a place to start on the trip of exposing the fraud. Now, I want to make a personal note here real quick. There are probably more now. This was written right as Bill Clinton was becoming president, okay? So this is how old this book is, how dated it is. The information is still very good, all right? Damage. The word is to be distinguished from its plural form, damages. It is loss, injury, or a deterioration caused by the negligence, design, or accident of one person to another in respect to the latter's person or property. Damages. The word is to be distinguished from its singular form, damage, the compensation in money for a loss or damage. So, fraud, an international perversion of the truth for the purpose of inducing another, in reliance upon the perversion, to part with some valuable thing belonging to him or to surrender a legal right. Synonymous with bad faith, dishonesty, perfidy, unfairness, infidelity, faithlessness, etc. Fraudulent concealment, hiding or suppressing a material fact or circumstance which the party is legally or morally bound to disclose. Fraudulent conversion, receiving into possession money or property of another and fraudulently withholding, converting, or applying the same to or for one's own use and benefit, or to use and benefit of any person other than the one to whom the money or property belongs. All this is important, guys, or I wouldn't be reading it off, so just bear with me. Fraudulent conveyance, the conveyance or transfer of property, the object of which is to defraud a creditor or hinder or delay him, or to put such property beyond his reach. Most states have adopted the Uniform Fraudulent Conveyances Act. Include. This is a word of limitation as well as a word of enlargement when used in statute. Thus, we see the phrase including but not limited to show that it does not mean a limitation in that instance. There would be no need for that phrase if the word always meant an enlargement, synonymous with only when used in that sense. So when you see the word includes in statute, it may mean only that item which follows the word. Including the District of Columbia means only the District of Columbia. From the Latin word includere, which means to shut or to enclose. Individual does not mean human being in most cases. Means a corporation or an association such as the American Bar Association. Informer. This term is synonymous with prosecutor. The definition shows that it gives anyone the power and the right to bring any and all actions against any person in or out of the government, including corporations, public and private, which includes municipal corporations. All right, and it says see relator. And this is Black Law's Dictionary, 4th edition, the definition of informer. A person who informs or prefers an accusation against another whom he suspects of the violation of some penal statute. A common informer, a common prosecutor, a person who habitually ferrets out crimes and offenses and lays the information thereof before the ministers of justice in order to set a prosecution on foot, not because of his office or any special duty in the matter, but for the sake of the share of the fine or penalty in which the law allots the informer in certain cases. Also used in less invidious sense as designating persons who are authorized and empowered to bring action for penalties. Black Law's Dictionary, 5th edition, defines it differently. These are all very similar. There's a reason that there are so many definitions here, okay? It's to show you what they're doing with these words and how they're changing the definitions every single day. A person who informs or prefers an accusation against another whom he suspects of a violation of some penal statute. An undisclosed person who confidentially volunteers material information of law violations to officers and does not include those who supply information only after being interviewed by police officers, or who give information as a witness during course of investigation. And that there's some case law cited there, as well as in the next one. I'm not going to keep going there. Like I said, I've given you guys the link for this PDF so you can pull it up and look it over. I just want to read these so that when I start reading the book, you guys have a better understanding when we're talking. Okay, or when I'm reading it, you have a better understanding of what's being said. An instrument is a written document. Lawful fraud cannot exist. A contradiction of terms, an oxymoron, an impossibility. Legal fraud, however, can exist. A legal fraud is fraud by construction, takes place all the time. Mala prohibita, acts which are made criminal by statute but which of themselves are not criminal, used in contrast to the mala in si, which refers to acts that are wrongs in themselves, such as robbery. This has no place in common law, only in Roman law that is used in America today. The word may, usually employed to mean optional, not mandatory, discretional. Municipal, pertaining to the governmental affairs of a state, nation, or people, does not always mean city or local government. It may mean federal government. Must. This word has several meanings. It does not always mean mandatory. It is often used in a directory sense and is a synonym for may. It can be used in a permissive sense rather than a mandatory sense. Nation, a race of people. That is how the law dictionaries define nation, a race of people. Non-residents, residents beyond the limits of the particular jurisdiction. In ecclesiastical law, the absence of spiritual persons from their benefices or rank or public office. A non-resident, one who does not reside within jurisdiction in question, not an inhabitant of the state of the forum. A non-resident alien, one who is neither a resident nor a citizen of this country. Peonage, a condition of servitude compelling persons to perform labor in order to pay off a debt. This is prohibited by the 13th Amendment. Notice it did not use the word people and may be referring to corporations only. All right? There's a reason that I'm reading these. People and person do not have the same meaning. People, a state, as the people of the state of New York. Notice the small s used in the word state, and it does not mention persons. Also, a nation in its collective and political capacity. Person. This does not mean human being in most cases. It can be assumed to always include a corporation. A corporation is a person, as referred to by the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment expressly applies to person. Artificial person, a corporation, or a fiction, the offices of government. Natural person, a human being. In the statute, the term natural person must be used to refer only to a living, breathing human. Get that? Private corporation, as used in Title 36 United States Codes, means a corporation established under federal law, not state law, as we would be led to believe. Examples are the American Red Cross, Boys Club, Girl Scouts, American Legion, Jewish War Veterans, American Olympic Committee, and 46 others listed in Title 36 of the U.S. Codes. Prosecutor, an informer, a relator, one who instigates a prosecution against a party whom he suspects to be guilty. Private prosecutor, any person, not an officer of government. Everyone is a prosecutor and should take the places of the ones hired by the governments. Public prosecutor, an officer of the government, such as a district attorney hired by the government to do the job that a private prosecutor would do. Public does not mean all the people. Purview, not preamble. Relator, an informer or prosecutor. Roman law, indifferent with civil law in America. That means that civil law in America is Roman law and is foreign law. Shall. This word is generally imperative or mandatory and denotes obligation. The word in ordinary usage means must. Remember that must did not always mean mandatory, but it may be construed to be the equivalent of may, where no right or benefit to anyone depends on its being taken in the imperative sense, and where no public or private right is impaired by its being taken to mean may. So that is legal bullshit language that they use to twist stuff around. And so when you read legal things, you have to read every line, between the lines, frontwards and backwards, and find out what they're really talking about. State. When written with a small s, it means all the inhabitants of a given land. When the S is capitalized, it means the corporate body politic, the government only, and could refer to a territory or enclave of the federal government. The definition that is to be used in the statute will be given as each statute is stated. It will be different from one statute to another. Ultra vires, beyond the scope of the powers of a corporation or government. An ultra vires act of a government is one that is beyond powers conferred upon it by law. Will. As a verb, it commonly has the mandatory sense of shall or must. See shall or must above. World. All persons who may have a claim or interest in the subject matter, not the same as earth. Okay, that's the end of the glossary. I'm going to break here real quick and grab something to drink before I, well, thank you, guys. Before I start the book. Now, I'm starting the book next. I'm skipping over the index, but like I said, this here is, oh, here, you know what? I know he put the description links in. Let me find this. Let me grab this. I'll go ahead and put it in chat for any of you who just want to grab it out of chat. And let me grab something to drink real quick, and I'm going to start reading this. Like I said, we are taking this book in small doses, but it is very, very important. So, uno momento, and I will be right back to it. All right, these are case sightings, and you guys really should read. If you just take a few moments and read through some of this, you're going to be astonished and amazed. Print it out. Make your own notes, okay? If I didn't feel that this was really good and really vital information, I would not share it in this manner. So give me a moment here. Sorry, all right. All right. All right. And this starts the book. Fraud Everywhere. Excerpts from Howard Griswold. Many of the things that we have been taught in the past by teachers, preachers, parents, and people bringing us the news, just to name a few, have been found to be wrong. The people teaching us may not have intended to teach us wrong. It was that they did not know that the information was wrong. It was not due to intentional spreading of wrong information, although there is a lot of that also. It is just that nobody is aware of the truth. I have found that a lot of the things that we have taught over the last 20 years have been wrong. So we will not place blame on anyone, but try to learn more and go forward with what we can confirm. A lot of our mistakes were due to misconceptions carried around all of our lives. You guys listen to this. This is more than just legal. stuff in this book. This is stuff that can pertain to every part of your lives, okay? One misconception was that we were all citizens of the United States, and anybody who told me different would have a fight on his hands. But it turns out that I never worked for the United States in my life. I have only visited there about 4 or 5 times in my whole life. I know that now, but when I was a kid, I would have sworn I lived in the United States. All the way up until a few years ago, I still would have sworn I lived in the United States. But I found out a lot of things in the last few years due to the research of many patriotic, independent researchers, and one of them specifically discovered a court case to help confirm this thinking. That court case is New York re Merriam, 16 Southern Court. I think it's case 1073. This court case verified in one sentence all the things I thought I was finding out about that were reversing the beliefs that I had previously held. The statement out of this case is: the United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. Another case that helps explain the confusion is Enright versus USDC and NY 437 F supplement 580 and 581. That case explains that the federal government is a state bound by all of the provisions of the Interstate Agreement on Detainers. And I know you guys don't quite get that, but just stick with me, because even if you're not picking it up right now, you will be picking it up as we go along, okay? So bear with me. First of all, whoever thought that the government was a corporation? I thought it was a government formulated by a God-given constitution. I doubt if God had anything to do with that, but that is what I previously believed. A corporation is a group of people who get together for the purpose of making a profit. Government is a cover-up for the means by which the group will make the profit. Governments and religions are a lot alike in their business endeavors. Religions are created to cover up man's inability to have knowledge and his insecurities. The word religion means to do things simultaneously, consecutively, and consistently. It means to do the same thing every day in the same way, to be consistent. Governments were created by religions. All law goes back to something called I'm going to mess it up again. Ecclesiastical laws. Religions created the laws, but God did not create the religions. I cannot find the word mentioned in the Bible. There is nothing in there about religions. There is something in there about governments, but that was not found in the original Hebrew text. The newer books mention governments, but the older ones did not. These newer books combined the government with religion. Then, when we found this governmental structure known as the separation of church and state, which actually means the togetherness of church and state, the church cannot exist without the license from the state. Again, we see how backwards everything seems to be when it's studied in some detail. Where is the separation? There is no separation if one has to be subservient to the other through licensing. Something is wrong in all of this when it's twisted around so much as to be backward from what is said to what is meant. These wheels were put into motion thousands of years ago, and there may or may not be someone causing the confusion to survive today. But because of the confusion, we are wandering aimlessly. One of the things we have learned is that this thing called the United States is a corporation, and that it is foreign to the people, you and me, which means I am not a citizen of it, although I have been told to believe just that. In school, we were taught civics, which was based on Roman civil law and comes from the Latin word civitas, which means citizen. It is Roman citizen law. We actually have a Roman Empire government, which is a duplication of the ancient Roman Empire. If you study the Roman Empire and how its government works, you will see the relationship between that system and the United States system today. You can look it up and check it out for yourself. Most law students will tell you that they study Roman civil law in law school. Why would they study foreign law? Why not study American law in American law school? We are living under Babylonian law or Roman law, which is the same thing. So, in order to understand what is going on in our law today, we had to go back to those ancient systems and come forward to comprehend the theory behind the function of the law. Ancient English feudalism is the forerunner of our system of real property. The property ownership in this country is feudalistic in nature. But if you use the feudal terms of the old law from the common law of England, in the modern law courts, they will reply that they do not know what you are talking about. They do not use those old words. They have new words that have twisted the meanings even further. The meanings are what have been changed so tremendously, and that has led us astray from knowledge. Back in grade school, the nuns said, "Now we are going to learn how to be good citizens," and they handed out this little book called Civics. They never said I was a citizen, but they sure did imply it by giving me the book and telling me we were going to learn how to be a good one. It is very interesting how we can be led to believe something, but we are never told it. Deception is all through this system. One of the things that we first memorized was the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. It is still in my memory. I still remember doing it. I have not done it lately. I do not have any allegiance to the United States or their stupid flag. For those who think that it is a disgrace to talk that way about the American flag, they might be surprised to know that the Pledge of Allegiance says the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. What is it? It is the United States, which is standing up for the republic, America. The United States, the government, was to be the protector of America. The government was set up to defend America, the people. The government created the flag, which is the flag of the government, not the flag of America. America does not have a flag. The most important word in there is republic. What is a republic? I looked all over the place for the definition and could not find more than a few words. No matter what dictionary I used, when the political powers do not want something known, they just barely cover it in the available definitions. If they want you to be totally confused, the definition is 3 pages long. If they want it hidden, it is only a sentence or two. Corpus Juris Secundum, a law encyclopedia, under the word government, explains that a republican form of government is a form of government in which any other form of government is the government. It seems a little amusing and surprising. It did not matter if the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, had socialism and the United States had capitalism. They were both united and had a republican form of government. One system of politics was totally different from the other system of politics, but they were both united republics. The republican form of government allows either system. They're both the same. Russia has a republic. America has a republic. But we claim that here in America, this government is a democracy. Russia claimed that they had a socialistic form of government, and that could very well be fitted into the definition of a republic when it is said that a republic allows any form of government the country wants. The District of Columbia is the home of the democracy. That is the home of the corporation called the United States of America. Corporate America has its own laws. General Motors is a corporation that has its own laws for its workers. One of the laws is that you have to show up for work at 7:30 every morning during the week. If you do not, you are fired. If you show up at 10 every morning, you'll get your pink slip and out the door you will go. So, do you have a constitutional right to work? The Constitution gives somebody the right to work, but I am not sure who that is yet. But since the Constitution is not written into the General Motors contract that was signed, there was no constitutional right to work at General Motors. But I have never showed up on time for work at General Motors, and I always go to work at 9 o'clock. However, General Motors has not fired me yet, and I have been doing this for years. Their laws do not apply to me. The laws of the corporation known as General Motors do not apply to me because I do not have a contract with them and I do not work there. Now, this is the difference in language, guys, that I talk about all the time. These are how they fool you. The laws of the corporation known as the United States do not apply to me because I do not have a contract with them and I do not work there. All right, guys, a little bit more here, and then I'm going to take a break and see what you guys are saying. So just bear with me because it gets better. Self-government here. In the Corpus Juris, it explains that there is a separation of power between the people of the land and the few people who create and maintain the government. It also explains that as a republican form of government, it is self-regulating. The Constitution gives the U.S. government the power to make all the necessary laws for the United States, that is, for itself. Now, we go back to that court case that stated that the United States is a foreign corporation, and we realize that a corporation is a private entity, and that if you do not work for them, and that their laws do not apply to you, then you can begin to understand the concepts on which this country was built. These government laws did not apply to the people in the states. They only applied to the people and properties that the government owned and controlled. It's no wonder then that people from all over the world wanted to come to a country where the government could not dictate the way for the common people to live. The knowledge of what I just told you was prevalent in the early years of this country and was common knowledge. But the dying off of generations and the lack of knowledge being passed down to the next generation caused this awareness of how the government functioned to be lost. By the 1930s, this knowledge was almost completely destroyed. These basic ideas that were once common knowledge to all had all but vanished. No one was teaching people about these basic concepts of government in America. As the people became less aware of how the government was to be operated, the government created for itself a new amendment. The men in government usually accomplish this act by causing an upheaval of some sort in order to give a cause and reason to make the new amendment. The great upheaval that the men in government caused was what we call the Civil War. From that war came 3 amendments. They were the 13th, 14th, and 15th. They are sometimes referred to as the War Amendments. The 13th Amendment dealt with slavery. The 14th allowed a new type of citizen. Elective franchise was the issue of the 15th Amendment. But the real purpose of the 3 War Amendments and the series of events around that time, including the death of Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, evils, was to create a status of citizenship for corporations. That was the whole purpose. The 14th Amendment did not create civil rights for the dark-skinned people, as we have been led to believe through history books and such. That was the cover-up. It was a fraud. The 13th Amendment did not free any slaves at all, but it did enslave all of the free. I found a book in the town library in Newport, Tennessee, called Fraud Everywhere. It was written just after the Civil War and explains the War Amendments and the war itself and what these things did to the society back then. It explained the fraud by showing copies of newspaper articles and other documentation. The author explained that the actions of the entire legislature were nothing but fraud. If they knew back then that the government was fraudulent, why was it allowed to continue? How misled we are. There is a Republican form of government in America with a separation of power between the people of the states and the people of the government. Now, it works both ways. If the government has no power to extend its laws to the people of the states, then the people of the states cannot tell the people in the government how to make their laws. It's a double-edged sword. The people in the states knew back then that they did not have the power to tell the people in the government what to do. They said then what I say today: I do not care what Washington, D.C. does. I do not care who gets elected president. I do not care what laws they make. None of it applies to me. I do not care if they are a gigantic fraud, as long as they do not come out here and bother me. If they do come out here, out of their jurisdiction, and bother me, there has to be some way to retaliate. If the people in government had no regulatory power over me and I had no power over them directly, but they tricked me and coerced me into doing business with them and making agreements that I knew nothing about, they must have known that they were doing something wrong. They must have known that if they could not come out here and do business with me, they had to figure out a way to make me come in and do business with them. The people in the government had to know that they were doing this, and they had to know it was wrong. And the unique thing about government wrongdoers is that they always set up a way for them to right what is wrong. Always. Finally, I decided that somewhere in the 14th Amendment there must be a remedy for me to get back out of doing business in there with the people of the government, to get back out of the mess of the 14th Amendment that they built to entrap us. It is there, and I found it, and that's what I'm going to show you here today. The remedy is to expose the fraud. I'm going to show you how to expose the fraud created by the 14th Amendment by using the remedy available in the 14th Amendment itself. I will show you how to get out from underneath what this government created by using the remedy they set up for all to use. I have said before, many times, that the Constitution of the United States was one of the biggest frauds ever perpetrated on the face of the earth. Indeed, it was. The concept that we believe that it applies to us and gives us rights is also a fraud. I've upset a lot of people with that statement, and one man got so upset he began a search to prove me wrong. I made him so mad that it caused him to get up and go work to find out how he got where he was on his own instead of just listening to me. And he found a court case while he was attempting to prove me wrong. The case was Barron v. Baltimore, Title 32, U.S. Code 243. Mr. Barron sued the city of Baltimore because they did some excavation work on some land right behind his building, which was located on the waterfront. He had a marine business where he brought in ships and unloaded them. The city of Baltimore's excavation work silted the harbor to the point where ships could not go in and out of his wharf. He filed a claim against the city and stated that the city had effectively taken his property without giving him compensation for it. He claimed that violated the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Here is what the judge had to say about the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution and to the Constitution itself. The provisions of the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, declaring that private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation, is intended solely as a limitation on the exercise of the power by the government of the United States. Okay? It is simply a limitation placed on the government by the government for the government. Get it? So why would they refer to the first 10 amendments as a Bill of Rights? The judge just said that the Fifth Amendment was a limit of power. Why not call it a Bill of Limitations? The only answer that comes to mind is that the government must be the one with the rights. It has those rights all the way up to the limitations spelled out in the first 10 amendments. The Bill of Rights is only for the people in government. So I want to say something before I read any more to you guys. Real quick, I just want to say this. If you think that you're free, I'm going to ask you to think again, okay? And I'm asking you to think again because he just talked about the Civil War was basically riled up so that they could make those amendments, right? The day you were born, when your mom signed that birth certificate or your dad signed that birth certificate, you became a government agent. Okay? So they own you. So you think you have these rights. You think they're God given, but what they are is the government saying, we own you. And for the privilege of us owning you, we'll throw you these few paltry things. That's all it is. That is all that is. So, um, any questions so far, guys? Yeah, you guys, like I said, the link it won't open for you. Oh, North Carolina girl, she was. There's a link in the description box, and I put the link in chat as well.
And there's the link to the SBC University, plus it tells you the tab that this is under. Google this.
Okay. So, you put all the links in the description box, though, right? For future? Or you didn't? All right, so I'm going to read a little bit more before I end it.
That they can find that.
Thank you. So yes, he's got all the links down there in the description box. And yes, this is a PDF. You can download it. You can print it off. You can make your own notes. You can read it yourself. All right. So I'm just going to read a little bit more, and then I'm probably going to close this off for today because I can feel my throat. Yeah, you can hear it a little bit. I'm getting a little raspy. All right, so where did we leave off? Oh, the people in government. That's right. Bill of Rights are only for the people in government. So the judge went on to say it is not applicable to the legislation of the states. But the 14th Amendment altered that statement later on, since this case was in 1833. The 14th Amendment in 1868 supposedly extended the Bill of Rights to the states. I'm going to show that it still had nothing to do with me and you. If it was intended solely as a limitation of exercise of power of the government of the United States, then the Bill of Rights and the Constitution were intended for the United States only. They were not intended for the people of America who were not citizens and not resident within the government. It does not apply to them. I want you guys to understand this, because there's a lot of talk going on about common law and all this other different things. Look deep into this. Don't just follow people blindly. Look deep and then look deeper. Don't stop searching for answers. And don't be afraid to look for contrary answers, because you need to find out what you're up against. It's not a daydream. You can't just go into it expecting all sunshine and no shadows. Okay? That is life, right? So when you guys look into this stuff, I really want you to start thinking about that. Don't just look for the answers you're looking for. Look for things that go against the answers you're looking for, and find out what the argument is, and find out how to truly go about this. You guys know that Jeff and I have been looking into this, and we told you we'd share our information along the way. This book is one of those important things of information. All right. The judge continued. The Constitution was ordained and established by the people of the United States for themselves, for their own government, not for the government of the individual states. That pretty much limits it. It goes right back to what I told you. This other definition in Corpus Juris said about it being self-regulating. It only had internal power to make laws and regulations for itself. The government has the power to regulate itself, and only itself. It does not have the power to regulate the people in the states. The government has internal power only until a business deal is established and a contract signed. He goes on to explain further. Each state established a constitution for itself, and in each constitution is provided such limitations and restrictions on its powers as its particular government's judgment dictated. The people of the United States formed such a government for the United States as they supposed best adapted to their situation and best calculated to promote their interests. That fits the corporate understanding very well. Their interests were to go into business and make a profit. They established a corporation and called it the United States. The people of the United States are the people in the government only. It is just that simple. They are not the same as the people of America. They have a different status. If the government had included all the people in America, it would have stated, "We the people of America," at the beginning of the preamble to the Constitution. Instead, it reads, "We the people of the corporation known as the United States," at the beginning of the preamble. See, there is a definite separation of power. You and I that do not work for the government are not entitled to do things that the people in government do. We, you and I, are not entitled to vote. Why should we even be interested in voting? What do we care what laws they make if their laws do not apply to us? No wonder we are not entitled to vote. But a real tricky way to get you involved in doing business with the government is to offer you the right to vote. If you do not know any better, you might even accept it. If you have the right to vote, the government could not offer it to you. It can offer only privileges, and they cannot be taken back. Rights can not only be taken back, rights cannot be given. They can be waived. As soon as you accept the offer to vote, you sign your name on a piece of paper, which goes in the government file. And now you are in the government. You are now registered to vote. By deception, most anything can be accomplished. They accomplished getting you into the government when you would not have done so otherwise. Whatever was best suited to their situation and whatever was best calculated to promote their interest was all the people of the government had in mind. The powers they conferred on this government were to be exercised by itself. It had no power over the states. The limitations on the power, if expressed in general terms, were naturally and necessarily applicable to the government created by the instrument. Remember, guys, an instrument is a document. The Bill of Rights applies to the government only and the people in the government. Therefore, you and I do not have constitutional rights. Only the people in the government have constitutional rights. People used to tell me that I was out of my mind for saying that. They would ask, "What do you think we have this wonderful Christian government for?" It is to give us our rights. I would say that I do not agree with that. I think that God gave us rights before the government ever existed. The government is the one that needed the people to let the government create some rights of their own to apply to themselves in the government. It is at the leisure of the people in the states that the government was created in the first place, and let the people of the government exist. If the people do not like it, they can abolish the government. America can only be free again if the corporation known as the United States were abolished. I did not expect to get much help in that effort until they picked the new wizard over there in Oz. The new Wizard of Oz, Billy Clinton, is running American corporations out of the country at record rates. He is running the biggest portion of his own government's tax base out of the country. That is revenue to support the United States of America Incorporated.
Yeah.
He has done more in a few months. Give me a moment, guys.
Go.
All right. I'm going to finish this up real quick here. All right, so Billy Clinton is running American corporations out of the country at record rates, running the biggest portion of his own government's tax base out of the country. That is revenue to support the United States of America Incorporated. He has done more in a few months to destroy the United States than all the rest of the anti-government movement has done in the last 50 years. He may very well destroy about 98% of the corporation called the United States in his first term alone. And I'm gonna actually end it there for right now. All right, we're gonna pick this up tomorrow, guys, and I'm gonna read you some more of this. Um, I really thought that you guys would enjoy this, and I thought it was very important to share it with you. So be blessed and have a great day, and we will talk to you all later.